In my last video, I started revisiting my city, Malmö, in Sweden. Walking through the old town, I came across different sites such as the large square, the Lion Passage, and lastly the oldest church in Malmö, St. Peter's Church. I posted a link in the comments section below. Anyway, I went back to exploring as Malmö still had so much to offer, especially the changes in weather from super sunny to rainy and then again sunny. Just a side note to why sometimes the shots are taken under a bright sun and then others under a gloomy dark cloud. I left St. Peter's Church with no planned destination in my mind other than getting lost on Malmö's old town streets. I only wanted to get immersed in the bustling city life, relishing the opportunity of experiencing the third largest city in Sweden. Different shops welcome people to take a look inside and buy their products. Restaurants and cafes as well. Reaching the main walking street in the old town, called Södergatan, I got a surprise. It started raining. You know those summer rains that don't last much? Well, this was one of those. Out of a sudden. But I wasn't afraid to continue my exploration and keep on walking. Right at the beginning of the street that is connected to the large square, I found an interesting sculpture reflecting Malmö's modern art scene. Entitled The Optimist Orchestra, this bronze artwork accompanies both tourists and locals' walks across Södergatan. Throughout my wandering, I ended up on a street having on one side a colorful yellow building. Its style and architecture gave away the fact that it surely belonged to a historical past. Even though it was very well kept, the wooden details along the house, together with the windows and doors, couldn't hide their old age. One more thought that I had: who would today paint their house in such a bright yellow? I haven't seen any modern houses adopting these colors, but rather something more simple and minimalistic. You know, like white and grey. Would you paint your house in such a bright color? Let me know in the comments below. Going back to the story, I felt that something more would be at the end of the road. Then I entered the small square of Malmö. Compared to the large square, this one was built a few years later, in 1590, as to offer locals an additional area to handle. Personally, I enjoyed it more than the large square, because it offered me a more intimate feeling. With ease, I absorbed all the details surrounding the square, from truly old buildings, such as the yellow construction, to a more recent architecture, and by that I mean the 19th century. One by one, each of the newer constructions were turned into restaurants, or at least their ground floor. All these houses, together with the restaurants, were closely linked together, as though they were holding hands, welcoming people inside for a drink or something to eat. Usually on a warm summer day, these terraces are packed with people, and I understand why. The view and feeling one gets while in the little town square makes the food worth its price. And that is normally the case in old towns. Returning to my wandering, I started encountering different old town streets, each with unique and picturesque elements that showed up. From interesting 18th century architectural buildings, where I believe people still live today, to buildings fully covered up in ivy, or small houses looking as though taken from a fairy tale. I was mesmerized by the history that each of these constructions emanated, thinking of the numerous families and people that once used to live here, or still are. Flowers grow harmoniously at each entrance door, creating a similar atmosphere to entering Narnia or some other mystical realm. Everything is so well kept, clean, and meticulously organized that I felt as though I'm walking through a dystopian city from a faraway future, or from another planet. And then I found this house, on the most beautiful street in Malmö. Which captured my attention at once. It was truly taken out of a story. It had 2 wooden dolls at its entrance, flowers surrounding it everywhere, and even 2 chairs for the tenants, I suppose, to sit outside and enjoy the sun. Looking at the wooden dolls, I got a feeling of happiness, knowing that whoever lives here still has their own inner child more alive than ever. Leaving the unreal streets of the old town, I ended up in another square of Malmö's historical center, Gustav Adolfs Square. This square has a great significance for Malmö because it is a symbol for the city's development. King Gustav IV, 1804, to take down the old fortifications of the city as to drive its expansion. Then, new quarters, channels and avenues were built in order to develop Malmö. One fun fact is that during the king's stay here from November in 1806 to May 1807, the city became capital of Sweden, only for 6 months. Nowadays, the square is used as a fruit and flower marketplace. Also, different events take place here once in a while. The most known of is Malmöfestivalen, which is the city's festival. Art is also to be found here in the square, such as this sculpture of a griffin, I assume. Intrigued by the meaning of it, I searched some explanations to what it signifies. However, I wasn't that lucky to find any. If you are from Malmö and know of it, I'd love to hear more in the comments below. After a few minutes of relaxation in Gustav Adolfs Square, next to the fountain, I ended up on a path leading to the end of the old town. I knew it because of the canal acting as a barrier and the bridge crossing it into the modern city of Malmö, where history is still to be made. One aspect of the bridge, called David Halsbrunn, attracted my interest was the numerous shoes neatly standing in line one after the other on both sides of the bridge. They represent the shoes of famous personalities of Malmö, each bearing a name and a date of the person that once used to wear them. Isn't this a creative way to remember the people that had a great influence over the city? In this way, they will never be forgotten, as their shoes will act as a reminder of the person that once used to wear them. This was the story of Malmö and how it feels like walking through the old town. I found a cozy place to sit, next to the canal and a cat, reminiscing the picturesque landscapes I encountered, the rich history I experienced, and the feeling I got from observing the old town of the 3rd largest city in Sweden. Now I wonder, would you come here next? See you in my next video. Stay safe.